This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, Anisha, can you hear me? Hello. Anisha, are you able to hear me? Your device is showing as self-muted. I think you can unplug the headphone or earphone and can you reconnect to it? I can't actually hear you. Mm, I think the problem is not from my side because I just had a class and it was working fine for both the sides. Can you just reconnect your audio device or I can't actually hear you. So just make sure that your computer audio is enabled in your GoToMeeting screen. Just check that radio button and there will be a link called sound check in a blue color. Just click on it. If you are able to hear the voice, hear the sound, then your audio is fine enough. If not, then there is some problem with your audio device, your earphones, I mean. Can I just, okay, I can't actually hear you. I can't even hear even a single word. I think there is some problem with the device. Mm, can you just reconnect? Can you try connecting your earphone to some other socket? So just unplug your earphone and connect it to some other socket. So in your machine there will be one in green and one in red, I guess. So try to connect it to the green socket. If nothing works, then maybe we can have a chat over WhatsApp. You can call me over WhatsApp and I can share my screen. So the audio will be through mobile and the screen sharing will be through this. Yeah, it has been muted, so you should unmute it. So just click on that button, the green button over there. I mean the mic button over there. Okay. Hmm. It's not allowing you. Okay, then what shall we? Okay, fine. Then I will just call you through WhatsApp so that we can have a chat over WhatsApp and I will share your screen. Okay, I will just call you to your WhatsApp number now. What's the problem? Is it with your phone? Okay, so can you just try if you have any audio or any music in your laptop, this way. So I will talk over the GoToMeeting. We can keep this connection WhatsApp connection on. So if there is any doubt, just ping me. We'll get it over WhatsApp.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
Okay.
We don't have any other option. So
Yeah.
I
Okay,
will.
then I'll wait for you to connect.
Okay. I will just talk over the GoToMeeting site.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
do you
Any
remember?
problems, I'll just type it.
Just 1 second. Can you speak now?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Anisha. Through the
Yeah.
earphone, I can hear you. And now I
Oh, you
think
can
your
hear
voice
me
is.
as well?
Yeah, I can hear you through GoToMeeting site. So now it's clear.
Oh, hi.
I don't know what
Finally.
was the problem. Yeah, finally. So I don't
I
know what
think
was
that
the
was,
problem so far. Maybe it connecting audio, it might take some seconds to load. So maybe in between that
I
downtime,
think
we
that
met,
is
I
that
guess.
because the connection here, sometimes
Okay.
it's not too great because of the layout of the house.
Uh-huh.
It's quite a big house. So from where the Wi-Fi connection is and where I am in the room, it's quite far apart. They could be that.
Okay, fine, Nisha. Okay, fine. That's okay. So now good that we are able to connect now. So do you remember
Yeah.
what we
So
saw
welcome.
yesterday? Any idea what we saw yesterday?
Yeah.
What we can just say anything. What all we saw discussed yesterday.
Yep. How basically projects are
Correct.
introduced and how they're developed and how they are managed through testing. What else?
Correct. Yes. So we
Yes,
saw some of
all
the
of
basic
that.
concepts. So the first thing we saw about is
Company.
what is a service-based and a product-based industry. So that was the very first difference we saw. So the product-based company is basically a company like Apple or Microsoft or the HP, any company you can take. So that's a product-based companies. So service-based
Mhm.
company is basically a company which will provide service to uh, companies like Walmart. So Walmart will need a service. So this service-based companies will do that service for Walmart. So let's say Infosys, we took it as example yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's the first difference we saw yesterday. And then we saw about what are the type of projects Infosys has. So we saw about KFC, what all thing KFC needs. We saw about Walmart and the automobile industry. We saw what all the requirements they have. And then we saw about project. What is a project and what is the module? The difference between a project and module we saw, correct? So
Mhm.
Walmart will ask for
Yeah.
three requirements. One is they want to create a client database. One is they want to create an employee database. And the last one is they want to create a feedback portal. I think we saw about these three things yesterday. And then we saw
Yeah.
about the different type of teams in a project. We saw what an architect does. So do you remember
Mm-hmm.
I told you an example application and we have three
Yeah,
parts
the
in every
design.
application.
Yep.
Do you remember what are the three parts in an application?
The architect designed
Correct.
the
The architect
support
will
something,
design, yeah,
the support system, and one other. Can't really remember, but yeah, I
yes,
can't recall
exactly.
it.
Yeah. So an application, any application will have a front end, a middleware, and a back end. So that's what we saw. The
Yeah.
front end is what the customer is seeing. The back end is where the data will be saved. I told you about database, some
And
keyword
middle
called database.
is
Do you remember that?
yeah.
Yeah. So the database we can fetch, we can take the records from the database and we can use it. So that is the front end and back end. And you asked about the question like what will Java or these programming language will do.
Python
And I told you an
and Java.
example that yeah, I told you an example like on clicking the login button, if the login validation is done at the single second and it is the result is displayed. So that validation is carried on by Java programming language. So we saw about these things yesterday. And we
Mm-hmm.
also saw about each team's how they work, the development team, what a testing team does, and what is the need of a testing team. Also, we saw because if there is a testing team is not there, then we saw about all the losses yesterday, like a Bloomberg crash, then a Sun airbag issue, and so many things we saw. If you
Yeah.
remember. Okay, now I will
Mm-hmm.
give you a scenario. You say, how will you test the scenario? Simple, very simple one. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I will just create a file here. Okay, I will create a notepad here, for example. Um, hello. So this is my notepad. So I need to rename this particular file. So this is my test case. So the developer have created a functionality to rename a particular file to any other name. So renaming, you know the concept. You can rename a particular file with any other name. So now if you write a test case for this, what all will you write it? You have to write both positive and negative scenarios. So I'll first explain what a positive scenario is. Positive scenario is when you give some input and the result is successful. So that is a positive scenario.
Negative
Okay, I
is a
will just
problem.
negative is a problem. So in which case it won't work properly. So that is the thing which we are going to track here. So just say me the positive scenarios first. So what all names can we give it for this to this particular Excel so that it will work properly, to this particular notepad so that it will work properly? Any idea? We can rename it with anything. I can, instead of this hello, I can right click and I can rename with some other value. World I can rename. I can rename with let's say Nisha. I can rename with any number of values. So all these data will be positive data.
Mhm.
You can see here. So I will write all the
Okay.
positive data first. Okay, I will just type positive here. So the positive data is I am first typing it as world and it is working fine. I am then typing it as Nisha, it's working fine. So almost all the data will be positive scenarios. But tester's main job is not to find the positive data. We have to find on which scenario it won't work properly. So that is what we are mainly looking for. So can you say some negative scenario in which the renaming won't work properly? Any idea? So you want to rename this particular file called Nisha. So at what point of time it won't work properly? The renaming won't work properly. I can give you first example. I'm just opening this file and now I'm trying to rename this one, this particular value. I'm typing it as book. So now it will be a problem. I will just show this for you. I will create an example for you. I'll create a WordPad and I will create an Nisha as the name of this particular file. Now I'm opening this file and now I'm trying to rename this file, the open file. So Nisha to Nisha 2. So now if I click on OK button, I will get an error message saying that this file is already open, so you cannot rename it. So this is the first negative scenario which we tested. So the first scenario is whether to check. So this is the first scenario. Are you able to get it? Get the point what I am trying to do? Hello? So are you able to get it? I can't hear your voice. I don't know whether you are muted or.
Um, I can't hear anything. Hello? I can hear you now. Can you? Yeah, I can hear you now. Hi. Hello? Hello? Hi. No, I can't hear. I can hear you on the phone, but I can't hear you on the other line. It was fine, and now I can't hear you. So I don't think it's my side.
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear
Can
me?
you hear? Yeah, I can hear you, Nisha.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I don't know what is actually happening.
I
The
don't
line
know.
is
The last
fluctuating.
3 minutes, I couldn't hear anything. So
Okay,
everything you were showing me, I've heard nothing.
okay, fine. I will just reiterate that for you. So my test case, my objective is I need to rename this particular file. Okay, so let's say that
Yeah.
is my test case because the developer developed a functionality for renaming. So I'm testing it. So first I'm renaming it with this word. the Nisha with this world value, and it is renaming properly. You can see this. So I can rename with Amrish, some other value. I can rename it properly. Then I can rename it with some other value. I can do it properly.
When
So these are the positive scenarios. But the tester is more concerned about the negative scenarios, because only when we test the negative scenarios, we can find the mistakes in an application. So now for renaming this file, can you say some negative example here? In which case it will fail. The renaming won't work properly. In some cases, definitely it will
yeah,
fail. So
it's
can you
bad.
name?
It's basically good and bad.
Okay. So now I will open this file and I will try to rename it. Now it will be a problem. I think you saw that already. So I open this file and now I try to rename it with some other value, say UK. So now on clicking on this value, it will throw me an message that I cannot rename this particular file because it is already opened with some other name. So this is one
Okay.
condition in which the renaming does not work. So I will say the other example. So I will try to rename this with some other value like this. I am trying to rename it. So it is working. So this is a positive scenario for me. This underscore is a positive scenario for me. So now I will
Okay.
try to rename with some other value. So even this value is a positive for me. So I will try to find out when it is not working for me properly. So this is a normal condition. Everyone will rename like this. But what if a person rename like this? So that is what we will be looking for. I will show a different example
But
for you.
how?
So the at. So everything, almost everything is handled here. So I'm not giving any value. So then, this is also this case. So here I have a value called as Nisha. I am now renaming this file with not any value. I'm just simply typing a blank value and I am now saving it. Now with what value it is saved. So you can see it is again saved with the value Nisha. So it is a negative test case for me. I am trying to give a space here, but it is showing the old value. Correct? Okay, I can reproduce it for you. So you can just rename it. I'm just renaming it with so many spaces. Only the spaces are not any value. Now I click on this value save. It is still saving me with this old value Nisha. So that is a negative test case for me. I will say another value for you. I will just create another file for you. So now I will show another negative case for you. So there is already a file called Nisha. Now I rename it with Nisha. So what will happen? Two files cannot have the same
It'll
name.
be a negative.
So
Yeah.
now it will throw me an error
Should
said
be like
that
Nisha 1 or Nisha underscore.
correct. So one is
We
Nisha, so
want to
other can
be.
be some other name. So in this condition, it won't work properly. So it is saying that when two files
It's a negative.
have same name, rename won't work. So this is the kind of testing we will be mainly doing. We will do the positive testing. This is a very simple example of renaming a file, but it will be very powerful. You can see we will do the positive testing. We will also do the negative testing, but we will mainly focus on the negative testing because only when we do more negative testing, we will get more issues. So only when we get issues, the quality of the product will be more. So if we get an issue, we will send it back to developer. Yesterday we saw a cycle, if you remember. So I will send the issue back to the developer and developer will fix that issue and we will solve the defect. So that is how we are doing. So we will do with the negative scenarios. So now this is a basic testing we will be doing. So now we will start with the principles of testing. So there are 7 principles of testing. Okay. So I will teach you one by one now. So if you take this test case, can you say number of the positive scenarios that we can test this example with? Maximum number of positive scenarios. So what all names can we give to this example, this file name? We can give anything,
Nisha
any
1.
letter. In Nisha, we can give anything. We can give almost all the words in a dictionary. We can give anything, random thing. We can type it,
Yeah.
and it will
As
accept with
long
the
as it's
positive
not
scenario.
Nisha.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it is not an improper name. We can accept anything. So we cannot give everything and test it. Correct. I cannot type all the words in a dictionary. I can test it. So we should not
Yeah.
test it with almost all values. We should take the prioritize the testing data and then we should do it. So now we can see this Nisha and world. They are some normal text, normal values. So that is one scenario. So it is passed. So now I don't need to test it with the other data. So I tested with world. So there is no need to test it with something called as new world or world new, because it will give me the same result, correct? So testing, once the
Mm-hmm.
testing with this data is done, there is no need to test with different data like some other word from a dictionary. That is not needed. So then I tested with this undercase and underscore value. This simple line I tested with it, and it's working. Then I tested with text with has all the special characters like dot, the square brackets. So these things. So now I will test it with again some other values like some numbers I am testing it with. Whether the data is accepting numbers, yes, of course it is accepting numbers. So numbers I can save it.
Mm-hmm.
So we should restrict our test cases. So this is called as test data. We cannot test with almost all scenarios. If we want to test with all scenarios, there will be 3 billion values, 3 billion keywords with which we need to test it. But we cannot do
So
it in a
how
real
do we
time.
know?
Yeah,
Okay,
we should.
so how do we know how many can we test with?
Correct. So that is the first principle of testing, which says that you cannot test with all data. So you should prioritize the data. So exhaustive testing is not possible. Exhaustive testing means testing with all possible values, but that is not possible
Mhm.
because here we
It's
have 3
not, no.
billion values which we cannot test it. So we are taking only the sample data. So we are first testing it with the alphabets. Yes, it is working fine. Then we tested it using numbers. Yes,
Okay,
it is working
numbers.
fine. Then we use some special
Mm-hmm.
characters and we tested it. Yes, it is working fine. Then we only gave the space and tested it. Now it is not working fine. We are getting the old value. Then we are checking some other
Mm-hmm.
scenarios. So this is the kind of testing that the that that's what we should use. So we cannot test with all data. So we should take only the necessary amount of data and we need to test it,
Right.
because only then we will get the optimum result. So that is the first principle of
Mm-hmm.
testing. Nobody can say that I tested this particular file with all data. There is nothing called all data. It is like infinity. There will be infinite amount of data. You cannot test with almost all possibilities. You can just take a sample
Right,
out of
yeah.
them and you can do the testing. So sampling needs to be done. So
Like
like
a
a simple.
sequence of numbers, letters, and then numbers or letters.
Correct. So some possibility, some sampling we need to take. You can in the medical
Mm-hmm.
term
Mm-hmm.
we will use a blood samples to test a person's body. So a blood sample will have just a 1 unit of blood sample will be enough to determine the entire amount of blood value. Correct. The entire amount of the BP or sugar. So we will not be taking the entire drops. We will just take one drop and test it. Similarly, we will just take one data per scenario and we will test it. So here we are just using alphabets, then numbers, then these special characters. So this is the first principle of testing. You cannot test it with all data. You can test it only with necessary data. So that is enough for testing.
Okay.
So that's what the
Mm-hmm.
first principle says. Now the second principle is like, I will just show this to you. So
Amrish,
it's a, sorry.
can I just ask a question?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
see, okay, the first example you showed me,
Mm-hmm.
and
The reading.
you tested it with a few things. Sorry?
Yeah, this one correct.
Yeah, the green, like, yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah, this
world,
one.
new
World.
numbers,
Okay, fine. The
name.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get a test case, right, in your instructions, would it say, like, how many times you have to test it, if that makes sense?
No, actually,
Or,
they don't give any condition like that. So it is the tester's
okay,
responsibility to determine the test data. So this is called as test data,
right.
because our
Yeah,
test
that's
case
what I
is,
want to know.
yeah, correct. They won't determine this. You need to test it with different data, a number of data. They won't give the number with 10 data you need to test it. No, they won't give it.
But
We
you just
have
have
to
to give it
determine.
a, yeah, it's like just to see if something's working, you will try always, as you know, right? Like common sense.
Exactly, yeah. Using the common sense, we will be doing all these things. So some analytical methods we will be doing.
Right.
For
Yeah.
example, I will give you a
Sorry,
condition now.
I'm only asking you these questions now in case it doesn't come up later and then I forget to ask you.
Okay, that's not a problem. Not at all problem, Nisha.
So please
So now
don't mind, yeah.
I will say you a condition. Okay. For
Mm-hmm.
example, there is a condition in India. I don't know about UK. So if a person is 60 years of age, they're eligible for government retirement. If their
Uh-huh.
age is
Yep.
60, then they're eligible for retirement. Okay.
Yep.
So now this is the condition. Now you have the first person. So the first person is 40. The second person is, so what all data you will use to check this particular condition? Generally, just say, you can say the conditions in which this should satisfy. So what all data you will pass? So I will say the first data I will pass is 40 years. So I will get a person 40 years. So there is, assume that there is a system. Okay. So this is application. So here you will have the age box. So there will be some age box. So and you will enter the age here. So in this box you will enter the age and you will get the message here, some pop-up message here. So the pop-up message will either be eligible or not eligible. So that will be the pop-up you will get. Okay, so this is the value that you will be getting. So based on the value which you are entering here, you will get the option as eligible or not eligible.
Mm-hmm.
So now what all data you will insert to check whether this will work properly. So I will first enter 40. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now this will be highlighted for me because the person is eligible. So green color will be highlighted for me because the condition is 60 years. No, actually it is not eligible will be highlighted for me because the condition is 60 years. So this will be highlighted for me, not this one. Correct?
Yep. Yep.
So this will be highlighted for me first time. So next I am entering the value as 70. So now the person is eligible for retirement. So now this will be highlighted for me.
Yep.
This will not be visible. So now vice versa. So now do I need to check with the value 30? So now we checked with 40 and we checked with 70. So do you think we need to check with for the data 30 years?
No,
I don't think
that's
that
not
is required
eligible.
because 40
No,
they are saying it as not eligible. Then definitely 30 will also will not be
30
eligible.
wouldn't be.
Okay, so
Anything
now I'm
60 plus.
sorry.
Would that be like anything 60 plus?
Yeah, correct. So
That would
now
be
I will give
eligible,
it.
and before that
Yes.
would be not eligible.
Okay, so now the actual test case test data that I need to pass is not these three. So first I will pass 59 here. 59 and I will pass. So for 59, if
Mm-hmm.
I get it as not eligible, then the second scenario is working fine. Then the less than 60 it is working fine. Correct. So for 59 I will pass. Then I will pass 61. So for 61 I should get it as eligible. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the point. So the third data that I will enter is 60.
Yeah.
So I will enter 60 and check whether it is showing eligible or not. So depending on the condition, it will show me
Mm-hmm.
eligible now. So these three data is enough for me to confirm whether this particular application is working fine or not. We don't need to pass data
Cool.
from 0 to 100, 0 to 1000. There will be infinite number of values. So we don't need to pass everything. So if it is showing correct value for 59, 60 and 61, then it is fine for me. I can assure that this application will
Mm-hmm.
work fine for me. You got the reason why I mentioned only these three values here?
Yep.
Because my condition is 60 years, I need to check one value before this, one
So
value
you
after
just
this,
want to
and
see
this
the
value.
surroundings, just literally before and after. You don't need to go from
Exactly.
0 to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. So this
makes
is what
sense.
the first principle teaches us. So exhaustive testing is not possible. So we need to pick the right candidate, the right sampling data, and we need to test it. So here the right data is 59, 60, and 61. So this sampling will give you the better input, will ensure that your application is working fine. Okay. So if you want to test for all numbers, then the test case won't be over for years. Even if you wait for 100 years, it won't be over because there are infinite number of data we have. So this is the first principle which the testing says. Now, okay, now we have another example. So you know how to drive a car.
Yes.
Okay, so what are the usual problems we face while driving, or what are the problems which we get in a car?
You have to fill up like fuel, petrol,
Okay,
low petrol. It
low
could be all
petrol,
sorts of problems. Engine problem, gear
engine problem will be
problems,
there, gear problem will be there. Yeah, of course. And
indication problem. Car is a problem.
that's nice. So we will mainly we will get these problems. Engine problem we will get ignition problem, and
Clutch.
sometimes clutch will be very tight or it will be very loose. So some problem we will
Yeah.
be having this. So whenever a car is going on a testing, so whenever they want to test it, they need to mainly focus on these three areas because most of the time the problem will be in these three areas. We don't need to test the, for example, if there are 10 parts in a car, I will list down all the 10 parts in a car. So you can say anything: windshield, engine, petrol or fuel tank, then
Mhm.
mirrors, airbag, then I can clutch, brake. So like some other units like seat belt. So there are 10 units in this particular car.
Yeah.
So mostly
Yeah.
the problematic area will be mainly 100%. This could be a problem. So
Yeah. The
after
main
this,
thing.
then sometimes there will be the brake failure might happen. So who knows?
Yes.
So then we are giving this as second priority, this as a third priority. So we should, so these the rest are the, I mean, mostly we won't get problem in these areas. So which means when we are testing, we should mainly focus on these three areas first, and then we should go
Have a
for other
yeah.
areas. Correct? So that is how we can do the effective testing. For example, to
Mm-hmm.
test this car, they have given only 2 hours. So the, if you have went to a mechanic, they will just mainly check these based on this condition. They will check a engine, whether engine is working properly. Okay, then they will next go to brake. Then they will go to check. And if they still have time, they will go and check the fuel tank, windshield, and other aspects. Okay, so this prioritization is very important while testing. So you should know what is very much important while testing it. You cannot just start it with the order. So just because windshield is in the first place, you cannot start with windshield. That is not important because it's just a glass. Nothing will happen to that glass. So there is no testing is required for that. But engine, it has some electric, it has some
Definitely.
engineering in it. So we need to test engine a lot of times. So that is the next principle of testing. We should know the priority of testing. Session is important. Okay, so now you understood why we need prioritization in testing, because we are most likely to
Definitely.
get failure in some places. So which means as per the technique, what it says is defect clustering. This is called as defect clustering.
Mm-hmm.
So what does a cluster mean? The literal meaning of a cluster, do you know? Any idea on that cluster?
Problematic.
Yeah, problematic is one meaning. So cluster is basically a group of some similar elements. It's called a cluster. So here
Mm-hmm.
we are we are clustering defects because most of the defects can be found in the engine. So first we are taking care of this cluster. Then the, so for example, if there are 100 defects in this car, so then 80 percentage of the defects is in this engine. Then the 20%, then the 10 percentage of defect comes from this engine. 7 percentage come from this part, and the remaining 0.5. So it will be like that, 0.5, 2.2. So something like that it will be there. So we need to focus on this particular area first, and then we should go for this, then this. So based on defect clustering, we need to find out. You are clear with this defect clustering point, or I need to reiterate this? So it's basically the
No.
priorities. So why
Yes.
do we need to so why we go for engine? Because there is more likely probability that the engine might fail, which means the
Mm-hmm.
probability of getting a defect in the engine is more. So that's why we are going for engine first.
Basically,
So that
you're
is what
trying to
is
sort
called as
out what's major. You're
correct.
dealing with what's major, then yeah, the least to the most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is a major problem, or which area is more vulnerable for us? So here engine is
Yeah.
more
Vulnerable. Yeah.
vulnerable. Yeah, so that is what we are testing it. So the defects, more defects can come in engine. So that's what we are doing it here. So the second principle talks about prioritization is important in testing. You need to prioritize where the defects will be more and where defects will be less, and you have to act accordingly. So that falls the second principle of testing. And next we will see about the third principle. For example, I think you are from medical industry, right? So you have this, you would have gone through this. So usually we will have some new virus which will be coming up every year, correct? So on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis, so many viruses are created, or so many viruses are discovered in this world. So before four
Yes.
or 5 years, we don't know about this virus called as Ebola, and now Ebola is everywhere almost.
No
It started
Ebola.
from
Yeah.
Brazil. So
There is
what
something
happened
that
was,
always. Yeah.
correct. So even before 4 years, we will use some basic antibiotics to prevent us from diseases. So this Ebola virus, how it evolved means it was able to withstand all these antibiotics. So you give it hepatitis antibiotics, it can survive hepatitis. You give some other B12 injection, it can survive B12. And still the Ebola is able to break all the antibiotics and it can still survive. So that is how a new virus is formed. So what the scientific world does it, they will discover a new solution for this particular virus and they will start injecting that to human beings. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I will just explain this for you in different way. So in 1950, we were only having 5 vaccines per year. So this was the ratio. In 1970, the humans were asked to put 10 vaccines per year because they found 5 new
Right.
diseases. So in 2000, in 1990, they were asked to put 20 vaccines per year because these 5 new vaccines were able to withstand the 5 new diseases were able to withstand this old 5 new vaccines, and that's how
Mhm.
they evolved. Similar to a plant, if you can take a plant, you are injecting a pesticide to a plant. So you, if you put the same pesticide every time, then you will get some other new virus will come to that plant because now that virus know how to withstand that pesticide. Correct. So that's how we are getting a new problems and viruses every day and day. So then the scientists will go and discover a new vaccine for that particular virus. Similarly, for testing, if you use the same technique, we will get the same problem again and again. You are getting the idea what I am saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you need to reiterate
Basically,
me
every time there's a problem, you have to tackle it with a solution.
with the solution. So we should not use the same. So I mean, for example, if you are testing a car, I can say so 10 times you can test with the same data. And if you don't get a problem, 11th time you need to test it with some other different data to check whether it might create a problem or not. Okay, so
Mhm.
we need to adopt different strategies while testing. The same strategy or the same approach will not help you at all times. So we need to find out new approaches to find out whether there is a problem, because a tester's mindset is always to find out where there is a bug. So tester will always
Yep.
look for a bug. If you use the same strategy to find the insect or the bug, we cannot find it. So we need to find different strategies. We need to relook our test cases and test data so that our
Find where
testing
all
will
the
be
errors
efficient.
are.
Sorry.
Basically, to find where all the errors are, which is causing.
Yes,
Uh.
exactly. So
Yeah.
sometimes, so we need to learn from our previous experience and we need to adopt a new strategy. For example, here I told you these 3 data are enough to test this age, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, you agree that I told this to you.
Yes.
So now, for example, if I enter a data minus 200, what will happen? We don't know how the application reacts. So this we can add. So the clients reported that I entered minus 200 value and it's not showing me a proper result. So now for the next time when you are testing, you need to add this data to your test case. So negative values you need to include. Okay. So this is
Mhm.
what the testing is. Testing will be keep on evolving. So you need to improve the standards again and again. You need to review and change your data again and again. So that is what is, because this is a pest. You need to use a new medicine to kill this pest again at different time. So first we tested with 3 data, then the client entered minus 100, minus 50, and the system was not responding properly. So now we need to test it with the negative data too. So now again the new customer said that I tested with this 59.99. Now it is still returning me eligible. So now you need to test with decimal values too. So likewise, you need to improve your test cases. Okay,
Mhm.
you are getting the point, Nisha.
Yes.
So the first point, you might think that I am contradicting from my first point, but it is not. The first point says that you need to know with which data you want to test it. The second point says that you need to know which area you need to test first. But the third point says that you need to continuously improve your test data. Here the test
Mhm.
data, initially I had these 3 data, but then someone inserted negative data and they said that it's not working. So from the next time when I'm using the same strategy
You
to
to
test a
find
number,
out.
I need
Mhm.
also to include negative values to my mind. So I added this to my point. So then someone added this 59.99 value to that. So next time when I'm using the same strategy to test a number, then I need to also add the decimal values to find it. So like this, we need to have more strategies to find errors. The more
Mhm.
idea or the more problems we face, we need to learn from those problems and we need to add it to our testing. So only then we can cover most of the defects. So our aim is to cover most of the defects. Okay.
Mhm.
So this is what the third principle says. I will just copy the principle from here. Pesticide paradox. This is called as pesticide paradox. So the fourth issue is like, so we are testing, we are finding 10 defects. Okay. So the defects we are finding means, so you are testing this application now and you don't find any defect means that does not mean that your application is fully correct. Testing will not ensure that your application is 100% correct. It will say that it won't be a failure. you are able to digest this point, or let me reiterate it?
Uh,
Okay, I will say a different example. Mm, okay, fine. You're testing application. Let's say this is the same test data. Okay, this is the application which we are testing. After 60 years, it should show me eligible. Less than 60 years, it will show me not
so
eligible. So this is my
not
application.
really.
So now
Mhm.
I tested it with some data like 59, 60, 61, and a decimal. And also I tested it with negative values.
Mhm.
So now I tested with almost most of the scenarios. So I can say only say my application is 99% defect free. I tested it 99%. I cannot say it
Mhm.
is 100%. The reason is we don't know what all it can happen, because I told you there are
What can occur?
crores of
Yeah.
data. For example, if the customer enters hello, what will happen to this? We don't know what will happen to this because hello is not included in my test case. But nobody will enter hello. That is my probability. My probability is everyone will enter only some values to that. Nobody will enter hello to it. So that's why just by using the probability, I can say that it is 99% pass. I can give you another example. You can see some floor cleaners or floor cleaner advertisement. You can see that in advertisement or the Pepsodent or any toothpaste advertisement. So they will only say that it is 99% sure. It can give you 99% of assurance. Nobody can claim that they can give you 100% of assurance. Correct? You think of any
Mhm.
ad, any advertisement. So you take any toothpaste advertisement, they will say that 99.9% of germs will be killed using this paste. Nobody can say that 100% because that is not possible. There could be some problem. A new virus can come in. Similarly, for testing, we tested with so many data, but we cannot assure that
Mhm.
this is a 100% pure one. We can say that it's only 99% pure one. Okay. So we are
Yeah.
using the probability and we are finding it. You are clear now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the first point is we cannot test with all data. The second point is we need to know what we need to test first. The third thing is we need to adopt new strategies every time. The fourth point is 100% testing is not at all possible. 100% defect
Mhm.
free is not correct. There is nothing called as 100% defect free. You can have some defect at some point of time, but we should try to minimize that probability.
As much as we can.
So that
Yeah.
is what we are trying. Okay. So now we have the fifth point. So now, for example, there is a car company which tried to design a car. Okay. So they are designing a car and they tried almost all kind of testing. They drove it in rain. They drove it in fog, mist. In all road conditions, they drove it.
What,
And
like a
now,
Jeep, like a Land Rover?
sorry.
Sorry, it's okay. Carry on.
Yeah, you said Land Rover or something. Yeah. So they will test in
Yeah.
almost every condition. So the car is tested. They drove it in sand areas. They drove it in some other areas in part of UK. So in UK they
Huh.
drove through the entire part of UK, and now the car is in India. So now will the car run as expected? The car is tested in UK, but the car is designed to run in Indian roads. You know the condition of Indian roads. You know the condition of UK roads.
Um. Well,
It won't be
I must.
proper.
It
Okay, fine.
won't be
I will
no.
say that. Yeah, okay. Because the UK road
I've never
condition is
been
it
to
will be
India.
very flat. Okay, fine. I can say that. The UK road condition is very flat. So and there won't be much potholes in the roads. Correct? It will be mostly as clean as possible.
Oh,
But if you look at the
definitely. Yeah.
Indian road conditions, there will be a lot of
It's not safe.
potholes at some places, and the population in India is much higher than what it is in UK, and the traffic
Yeah.
density is much higher in India than compared to UK. So
Mhm.
there is a lot of difference between UK roads and Indian roads. So for
Definitely.
a car to run in India, you should test only in India. You should not go and test it in UK. So that is the point.
Mhm.
You should fully understand the requirement and you should test it. Just because it is a car, you cannot test it, you cannot drive it anywhere and you cannot test it. You should know where to drive it. I mean, where it is exactly designed for, and you have to
Yeah.
test it accordingly. Okay.
Mhm.
So clear. So for example, a car in UK, there won't be potholes. So the car is working fine. So now in India, when you drove it in a road,
You have to
there will
test
be some
it again in
potholes.
India.
Okay, there will be some potholes, and immediately when the car hits the pothole, the airbag pops in. But that is not required because pothole will not do anything for us. So it is like we need to test it in the right environment and as per the client needs. We should first understand the client's needs and then we should test it. So depending on the
Mhm.
client's requirement only, we have to go. So the fourth condition says that we should test it according to, just because it's a car we cannot test it, we should know what that car is intended for, and then we need to test it. Okay, so these are the
Mhm.
first five principles, and the sixth principles I can show this for you. So for example, now you have a car, for I will take that. So now you are clear with this first five examples so far. Any doubts in
Mhm.
this five?
Mhm.
You're okay, right?
No.
Okay, which point you want me to re-explain?
No, 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 we're okay.
Okay, you are okay, fine. So just stop me whenever you want me to re-explain, I will do that.
I will,
Okay,
yeah. I'm taking notes
okay.
as well, so yeah, go
Oh,
quiet, but
that's
I'm only
great,
taking
super.
notes.
So that's great. So now, for example, there is a car company which is designing a car. So in that engine tank, the fuel tank, for example, tank, there is a small leakage. Okay, so now the company is not much concerned about it. Okay, so now this fuel tank is assembled to the engine. Then they are doing this painting. I mean, the paint coating will be done then, and then they are adding all the peripherals like windshield and so many other things they are adding. And finally, it is delivered to customer. Now customer comes and says that there is a leakage in fuel tank. So
Mhm.
now what they have to do is they have to again take out all the peripherals. They have to disassemble that engine, correct? They have to disassemble it, right? And finally, they have to check this fuel tank whether it is working fine or not. So
Mhm.
now, if they have detected this fuel tanks working properly at the initial stage, then the entire process would have been very smooth. But after doing everything, they are testing it, and that is the reason where it had a problem. Okay, I will just say, like, they on day one they started this fuel tank designing. Day one they started this fuel tank designing, and they didn't test for any leakage. They just designed this part, fuel tank part. They designed it. They don't know whether there is a hole or not. And on day 10, they're integrating it with engine. And on day 12, they are painting it. And on day 17, they are adding some mirror and all other peripherals to this car. And on day 20, they are testing it. So while testing it, they found that there is a leakage in fuel tank. So now what they have to do is on day 21, they have to disassemble the car. So day 30, they will take it from engine, and then on day 40 they will fix it. Day 31 they will fix it, for example. Then on day 50 they will again, integrate and then bring back the car to the new level. And
Mhm.
so now this is the first example. Okay, now I will say the same example. So day one they designed it. Day one they designed fuel tank, and then day two they tested the fuel tank. So now they found that there is a leakage in fuel tank. So on day three they fixed it.
Mhm. So it's all gonna happen on a schedule, on a time frame.
Oh yeah, somewhat like that. It will happen on schedule, let's assume.
Mhm.
So now on day three they fixed the fuel tank, and after that it will follow the same structure. So on day 13 they will integrate with the engine. For example, so on day 23 the car is delivered. So what is the inference which you get out of these two schedules? Which one is the best one you think? So this and this one. So which one is the best way of doing it?
the one that's more descriptive filter.
Which one? The first
Uh,
one or the second one? This is the one and this is two. Which is the easiest
uh,
way of doing this? I
first
mean,
one.
fixing this problem. So the first one has a problem like after doing everything, you are testing it. So to fix it, then they have to do some other process and they have to do it. I mean, they have to disassemble it, then they have to do it. So the car is delivered only on 50th day. So whereas the second problem, they are doing it and immediately they are testing it
Oh,
and
so
then
the
they are
first,
fixing it.
the second one. This, yeah.
Second one, exactly, because it saves a lot of time, correct? Because you can see the car is
Mhm.
delivered on day 23 here and it is delivered only on
Yeah.
50th day. So and also the rework is very minimal in this stage. So here you have to do a lot of rework.
Mhm.
You have to assemble, then disassemble, then again you have to assemble. So two times of
Yeah.
assembling you need to done. But here it can
Makes
be
sense.
just done in immediate next day you can do it. So this is what the testing also needs to be
Basically,
done.
they want the job done. They want the job done quickly and efficiently.
Correct. So they can do everything in a quickly and efficiently using this method, second method, because immediate testing will help you to reduce the problems. Reduce the problems. Okay. You can take this example, the car example. Similarly, for our testing too, we have to define the defects early stage
Hmm.
at an early stage. Only it will save us a lot of time and also a lot of money because now time is money, correct? Every day I told you the client wants to complete the project in 6 months means we need to complete it in 6 months. We cannot delay it. If we delay it, they will reduce the cost or they will do some problem for us. So time is very
Hmm.
precious for us nowadays. So we cannot do anything. So we have to save our time as much as possible. So early testing will help us to save a lot of energy. Will save us a lot of time and money and energy. So that is the sixth principle, which says that we need to test it at the early stage of any testing. Any product you take, you have to test it early. For example, you are buying a half kilogram of onion. For example, I'm saying. So you bought some half kgs, and after going to home, you got to know that 10 onions are not good in that. So will you go again? You have to return it. You have to buy a new onion. So is that efficient? Or you take an onion, you find that it is good or bad, and then you pick the best you want. So the early testing will help you to save your time a lot. You agree with this point,
Definitely.
the sixth point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the sixth principle of testing. Finding the defect at the early stage will reduce the cost. So then next is, for example, let's say Nisha is into testing world now. Let's assume. So now you're testing a car. Cars, let's say speedometer. Okay. So what all the options will be there in speedometer? What all the numbers will be there in speedometer? Let's say it's an awesome car which has 1800 rpm. So it can drive
It's a
at
Lambo.
maximum 240 kilometer per hour. So what all the in the speedometer, what all value will be there? It will start with 0 and it will have a 10, 20 indicator will be in this way. So it will be somewhere I will take it the paint and I will draw it. So it will be in somewhat this way. Let's say it is analog one. So you'll have this something like this. Just bear with my drawing. It's very bad. So something like this will be there in your
The
speedometer. So here you
diamond.
will have 0. Here you will have 10. Here you will have 50. So here you will have some 120. So this is the engine you are testing now. Okay. So now you will you will use some strategy for testing. Whether if you are driving at 40 kilometer per hour, whether it's showing at the right area per hour, the engine should point to this particular location. The needle should point me to this location. So something like this, you are testing it. Okay. Some approximately this area you are testing. Now you are testing another application, which is a blood pressure application. Okay. I don't know the name of that. Sphygmomanometer. Is that correct?
Sorry, say that again.
There is a engine to, I mean, the machine to test that blood pressure. Is that sphygmomanometer? I'm not sure about the name. It will be in this one. The mercury will be over here, and it will
Oh, well,
point
they
to the
check the
sun.
blood pressure with.
Okay, fine. Yeah, the blood pressure machine. I don't know the exact name of it. So now you're taking this blood pressure machine here. So you have this particular engine over here, And now
Yeah.
you're testing the blood pressure using this particular apparatus. I can say
Yeah.
the not engine,
Mhm.
apparatus. So this apparatus will have the readings similar to this. So now, in both the cases, where do we need more accuracy? Here you will test, for example, you're testing for a data like uh, 80 mg something. I don't know about this quantity either. So 80 mg, will you check the approximate value or you will check the exact value for the blood pressure? So how will the BP be
Uh,
calculated? You need the exact precise value you need, because it is cost of a life of a matter of living and death. So we need a precise value in when it comes to medical industry, correct? Everything needs a precision. You agree?
mhm.
So we cannot just simply say, for example, if the value here is 90 mg, the blood pressure is 90 mg, we cannot just assume and say that it is somewhere near 70 mg.
Yeah, you have to
70
keep it
mg. That won't
precise.
be correct. We cannot say that. We need to exactly say that if it's 92, we need to say 92. We cannot say it as 90. 90 because 92 and
No, because
90
you have to give the right
will cost a
information.
much difference between 92 and 90. But whereas if you take the car, we can, if the car reading is 48 kilometer per hour, we can say it as 50 kilometer per hour. It's not a big deal. Two, I mean, this two speed is not a big deal for us. Correct?
Yep.
So we'll just see the reading and we will say that 50 kilometer per hour is the car speed. But here you cannot see this as a 92 and you cannot say it as 90. So this is what is also required in testing. You should not use the same approach every time. So your the testing depends on context.
The seriousness.
Sorry.
The seriousness, like how,
Okay. So
yeah,
you
like you
cannot
said, the
test this
context.
engine. You cannot test both the engine with the same idea. So this you for testing this, but both are readings, correct? So this is a reading. This shows some reading, and even this shows a reading, but both
Mhm.
is not the exact one. You need to
Very
have a
different.
different approach for both these things. So here you need to
Mhm.
take more importance on the precise value. So 92 is more
One is a
important.
car, one is to do with someone's life.
Sorry.
Just saying, one is like an engine, one is to do with someone's life.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So you need to be cautious about some parameters between these two things. So same kind of testing will not help you in all places. So depending on what your application or what your product, you need to change your testing ways or testing methodologies. Okay. So this is a 7 principle
Mhm.
of testing. You are getting the point. Just go through them. And if you have any point or if you want me to reiterate anything, you can stop me and I will
Mm.
reiterate those points for you.
I'm
Just
just
take a
taking
second.
notes, so if you just bear with me.
Okay, fine. So that's good. So these are the 7 principles of testing. Whenever you do any testing, just make sure that you follow all these 7 principles. So for effective testing, this will help you most of the time.
I'll be
So you
calling
don't.
you when I'm stuck.
Okay. So can I? Shall I move on?
Just give me a minute. I'm just writing something down.
Okay. Okay. Just take your time. Not a problem. It's not context. It's context.
Context. Yeah, I understand. Don't worry.
Okay. When I type, there could be some possible
It's
lexical
fine.
errors. Please
Honestly,
bear with
I
me.
understand. So yeah,
Okay.
I know what you're trying to say, so it makes sense. Yeah, that's fine. Now you can move on.
Actually, these are very vague principles, but I think you just relate with those examples which I said, so that
Yeah, it's common.
you can remember those things easily. Okay, so these are the seven
Yeah.
principles of testing. You go for any interview or anything, they will definitely ask you these questions, or it will be very essential for your testing life too. So it's very very essential for you. Okay,
Mhm.
so now we will move on to the second part. So now we saw today's session. We saw about principles of testing. So next we see about the different types of testing we have. Okay, so now I will take the same example of a car. Okay, so now what all things you will
Mhm.
test in a car? So if you are not comfortable with this car example, I can give you some other example. So as of now, let's take this car as an example. So what all things you will test in a car? You're just assume that you're going to a showroom. So what all things you will test in the showroom? Just say that, not a problem. Anything you can say.
How the inside is, if it fit well.
So inside, I mean the infrastructure, how it is, correct?
If it's comfortable, basically, if it's comfortable, I mean, you can be
Okay, the
small,
comfort you
you
will check.
might want a smaller
Okay,
vehicle. Yeah.
okay. So then what else you will be checking? Comfort level you will check.
If it
Then
drives smooth, if it's too fast,
smoothly. Okay, if the car is smooth enough, then what else you will test?
uh, if you can reach the appropriate, um, like clutch brakes. Some cars are big. If you're small, you
Okay,
have a problem.
okay. Speed we will test whether it's going in the expected speed. So they would have said it can go at 240 kilometer per hour. So it is reaching that speed. For example, I can say. So that I
Hmm.
will check. So basically, if I go to that showroom, I will test these things as you said. So I will check whether the seatings or the cushion is comfortable for me, whether the car is smooth enough on the roads, whether it is reaching the maximum speed, or whether the brakes are working properly.
Yep.
Properly. So sometimes because my brake level is the brake will depend on people. Some people will have a very tight control over it. Some people will have a loose control over it. So they will check the brakes usually. So how about the steering? So
Yeah.
it is whether it is
The
comfortable for me for the
power control. Oh, yeah.
to control it. Control. So then whether the seat belts or position.
Hmm.
So we will check some of this, and we will check so many other things. But let's assume that I can say that whether I can connect my mobile to it. Mobile connectivity is there. So, for example, now you can hear songs through your mobile phones in your car. You can connect it through Bluetooth, and you can play your audio or whatsoever it is in your mobile phone. So that facility is now there in a car. You can attend calls using the car's audio device. Now I am going to categorize these testing into two types. Okay, these are the main type of testing I will be doing. So first is the infrastructure. Infrastructure is I'm going to put it in the functional or the UI, user experience. Okay, this is the user experience. How the user is going to experience it. So the infrastructure will come under the user experience. The comfort will come under user experience. The smooth ride is about the performance. Correct?
Yep.
It's about the car's performance, whether it is going in a smooth enough manner, or whether the speed is actually the as expected. So what if 10 people sit in a car? I can say that or 10 people are sitting in a car. So whether the car is able to pull it. So the load I will be testing. So I will be testing the load. So I will be testing. I will drive it at 200 kilometer per hour, and suddenly I apply brake to it. So I can test that too. So I need to check whether the brake functionality is working properly. I will drive at 200 kilometer per hour, and suddenly I will apply brake to it. So I will check the maximum speed. So I mean maximum speed of that car. So I will also check some of the functional interfaces. Functional testing is like I will check whether the car is running properly. I mean the engine is starting properly. Then I will check whether I can attend calls through mobile. Then I will check whether the seat belts are working properly. So now we have these examples. So this is the type of testing. One is the functional testing. The next is performance testing. The third one is user experience testing. The functional testing is nothing but the, the car owner will say something. So like this is the, so like for example, engine. So it should start in 10 minutes. So now you will check whether the engine is starting in 10 seconds appropriately. Then they will say that you can attend calls through this car. So someone will say that. So in the car's catalog, it is mentioned that you can attend calls through connecting it to Wi-Fi. So now we will check that functionality. For example, if that car has a speaker in that speaker device, so you will check whether the speaker is working properly in that car. So then they will say that the car has a seat belts, then you will check whether the seat belts is auto locking or not. So these things are functionality checking, whereas these things
Hmm.
are performance testing. You are 10 people are sitting in a car and you are running it, you are driving it in a road. So now you will want to see whether the tire is getting flat or not. You are testing whether the car is able to pull 10 people. So you will put a big 10 100 ton a bar over the car and you will try to drive it. Now you will check whether the car is able to pull 100 ton weight. So those things come under the performance testing. Okay, similarly for testing in IT, we have two fields. One is the functional and one is the non-functional testing. So you got the difference between them, functional and non-functional. I mean the performance. You're able to get it? Or I can reiterate this. Or example, you may need to check whether the car is secured. So like you will have in the key holder, you will have a button and it will be auto lock. You can lock the doors using the auto lock mode. So you will check all these things. So these things will come under the security in the non-functional testing. And this is a functional testing. You're clear? Nisha, are you there? Hello? Anisha, are you there? I'm not able to hear you.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Nisha?
Yeah, it just went blank.
Okay, fine. I will. So you want me to say about this concept again, functional versus
Yeah,
non-functional testing?
just like last minute or so, it just went blank.
Okay, fine. I will give us some other example. Okay. So now let's take this Facebook. Okay, I will open my Facebook account and I will. Let's open this Facebook. So usually, what all things, if you are going to test Facebook, what all things you will be testing in Facebook?
I have no idea about Facebook.
Okay, fine. I will say how what all to
I've
test
never
in.
used Facebook.
Okay, fine. I will say this. For example, if this I'm testing this email ID and password particular box. Okay.
Hmm.
So if this is what my application is, I will give an email ID or a phone number and a password. Then I will check it. So now I will have, this is my test case. First, I will give some valid username and password, and then I will test it. Then invalid username and password, and I will test it. So whether the user ID and the password box is working properly or not, whether this login button is working
Is it
properly or
birthday
not.
today?
Sorry?
Is it your birthday today?
No, no, no. It's just displaying today's date. I am not sure. It's not
Okay,
my birthday
sorry.
today.
Because I thought,
Okay. So I'm just surprised to see this here. I don't know how it came. So okay, so here I will be entering my username and my password. So this is functionality testing. I'm testing the functionality of this login button. So upon clicking this
Mhm.
login button, it will take me the username, password, and it will check the match. So if it is matching, then it is passed this case. So this is called as functionality testing. Instead of this, if I'm testing it in a different way, what if 10 user enter a username at the same time in this particular box? What will happen? So I'm using my user ID and password. What if 10, I access it through 10 devices? I'm logging in through a mobile phone. I'm logging through my laptop, my PC, my office system. If in 10 devices, I'm logging it at a second. So will it get logged out? Will all the options will get logged out, or will I be able to successfully enter it? So this kind of testing is called as non-functional testing. So you're not testing the functionality of login button, but you are testing the load of that application. Okay.
Mhm.
You're able to understand it. It's similar to the car example. So here in the car,
Yeah.
simply driving a car is functional testing. You are checking all the functional tests, whether the horn is working properly, whether the indicators are working properly. That's a normal functional testing. But
So
when
when
you
you
are
are
testing,
logging in with multiple devices, it will
uh-huh,
obviously allow you,
it will allow you. So that is kind of a testing
and
we
that
will be
would be a
doing.
multifunctional
Correct. So that will be
device.
non-functional testing. We are testing the performance of a system, like in how many seconds I'm able to log in. So I give my some user ID and password. So in how many seconds I'm able to log in. So whether it's taking 10 minutes to log in or it's taking 2 seconds to log in. So that testing the time parameters will also be possible. So that all these things comes under the non-functional testing, the performance testing, this is called as. So what is the literal meaning of performance? Any idea on literal meaning of performance?
Yeah, it's happening, like working
So how
performance.
fast you are working. So the performance is about how much time an application is taking or how much time you are taking to do a task
Mhm.
task is used to find out your performance. So similarly, you are checking the performance of this particular application here. So clicking on this button, in how many seconds you are getting an error message, in how many seconds you are getting a proper message. So this is called as the functional and non-functional testing. You're clear? So if I tested this functionality, if I type something here and something here, on clicking on this login button, I am getting an error like the email address and phone number is not a proper one. So that is a functional testing. But instead of this, if I ask 10 people to log in at the same time, or if I am testing how many seconds it is taking me to log into this page, then it is called as non-functional testing. Okay. So this is the primary difference between functional and non-functional testing. Now we have some types of testing in it. So I will first put all the type of functional testing. So the primary types of testing is functional and non-functional testing. There are two main categories of testing. So in functional testing, the first type is, I will say this. So you are clear with these two differences, functional and non-functional. So these are the primary classification of testing. And in this, let's assume that back to the car example. Okay. So you are comfortable with this example? Okay, fine. Now we are testing this fuel tank. Let's take this fuel tank example again. So now a car will have so many parts, like I will show here. So all these are different parts of a car. So each thing is called as a unit. You will agree to it. Its unit is a single small quantity is called as a unit. The literal meaning of unit is small part. So you are testing unit of a engine. Then this. So testing individually a engine. There will be engine team. You're able to hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I will just show a PPT to you. You will explain, you will understand that in a clear way. Just 1 second. So now we are into car building industry. Okay. So on day one, they will be designing this chassis. So chassis is nothing but the outer covering of a car. Okay, the iron content or the aluminum content in a car is called as chassis. The outer body of a car is called as chassis. So on day one, that team will be designing this chassis and they will be testing it by themselves. So they will check whether the chassis is working properly. So there will be another team called as engine team. Okay, there is an engine team. So the engine team will check whether the engine is working properly or not. So then they will check whether the chassis and engine together is working properly or not. You're getting it?
Yep.
So I will 1 minute, just 1 minute. I will explain with this example. So now to design a car, there are 10 teams. Let's say 5 teams, for example. So the first team is engine team. The second team is uh, the fuel tank team. The third team is paint team. The fourth one is brakes team. The fifth one is body shop. So now this team will design an engine by themselves. So they will design an engine something like that. So this is their engine, for example, assume. Now the fuel tank team will also design a tank, something like this. They will design a tank. So something like this, they will design it. So now the paint team will design a paint. How to paint this color, they will design something. Now the brake team will design a brake for them. So they will design a brake. And the internal architecture of brake is something like this. So this they will design and they will immediately test it. Okay, they will unit test it. So unit testing nothing but they will design this part and immediately they will test it. So this is called as unit testing. Now we have second phase is called as integration testing. So integration testing, what does the integration mean? What does the integration mean? Any idea?
No.
Any idea on what does the literal meaning for integration? Integrating means, what is the integrity or integration? The combination of two, combining two is called as integration. So now what they will do is, after this phase, they will combine both the parts and they will test it. So what they will do is they will combine this engine. So they will combine this engine with this particular fuel tank and they will check whether it is working properly or not. They will show it to you. So in integration testing, they will integrate this engine with this fuel tank
Basically.
and they will test it. And also they will then assemble it with the paint team and they will put a brake to this engine and they will test it. So the integration between two or different units is called as integration testing. Okay, clear with this point?
Yeah.
So this is the second part. So the second part is the integration testing. Now the third part is called as a system testing. So the system testing, what will happen is they will combine all these engines. I mean, they will combine all these parts and they will roughly design a car like this. So they will design a car like this and they will test the car's functionality. Okay, all the functionality will be tested here as a car for a car. So that comes under the system testing.
It's
So they're
basically like
testing the car as a whole. Sorry?
no, the section's done basically like front, middle, back, yeah, like what the overall would be the system testing.
Actually, I can't hear your voice properly. Can you increase your volume? I can hear you, but it's not so clear.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So, okay, so the last thing is user acceptance testing. So here, what will they do is they will give the car to a user and they will ask the user to test it.
To see if
Ask
everything's
the,
running right.
yeah, correct. Ask the user to test it and then get a feedback. So these are the main type of testing we have. So the main four type of functional testing is one is unit testing. All the individual modules will be designed by a team and they will do it the testing. So the integration testing is two or different modules will be combined and they will do the testing. The third testing is system testing where they will test the application as a whole. The fourth testing is user acceptance testing where they will give this job to some other person and they will test it. I mean that they will give it to the client and the client will drive a car and say all the problems in that car. So these are the four type of testing. Are you able to understand all these types?
Yes, yeah.
So
It's a
these are the
process, isn't it?
it's a process, correct?
With
So
everything, try
yeah,
and
correct.
test. Yeah.
Unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and user acceptance testing.
Hmm.
So unit testing will usually be done by the developers. Developer here in the sense I mean whosoever design this engine, they will test this engine by themselves. Similarly, if you take this Facebook page, for example, I will take this Facebook page okay, I will log into this Facebook page. I will show this page and I will explain you what's the difference between. Or I can take some other application too for that matters. Okay, so for example, this is my Facebook page. So now there will be one team who will be working on the search button. So in this entire page, one team will work on the search button. One team will develop the search button. The next team will develop all the functionalities that is required for the stories part. Okay, so the third team will develop a part for this make a post part. So I will explain this in this way. It will be better for you. So now this is my Facebook wall, for example. So now you can see there is one team. The first team will be taking care of all these parts. They will take care of this entire search button. The second team will be taking care of this entire story part. The third team will be much more working on this particular my wall content. What is my wall? What is there in my wall? And the fourth team will work on this games. For example, let's assume there is a game part here. So now these teams will work independently. and they will test this part. So for example, the search team will put so many inputs and they will search this particular option, this option as a whole. I mean the search button option, and that is called as unit testing. Okay, so this alone is called as unit testing. Now, when you integrate these two, you combine these two things and you test it. That is called as integration testing. So
Hmm.
third testing is you integrate everything. You put everything in one place and then you test Facebook as a whole. So that is called as the system testing. And the final thing is they give it to me. I am a user of Facebook now. And if I test it, then it is called as user acceptance testing, the last phase of it. Okay, you
Okay.
are clear with these four types?
Yes.
So these are the four major type of testing that we have in the market.
It's a life cycle process. Like it's a process how things are
It's a
developed,
process,
happen,
exactly.
tested
Yes, exactly. So this will be done by
in a
developers.
brief.
This will also be done by developers because it will
You see,
be sorry.
no, I'm just trying to like get into this IT
Oh,
terminology and yeah.
okay, okay, fine, fine.
So if I can't
So what?
answer something, it's just not because I don't understand. It's just because you see, the IT world is different to my world
Exactly.
of biomedics
Okay,
or
fine. Okay, okay,
yeah.
fine. So you will
That's
get
all.
used to all these terminals very soon. So now you know what a developer is, who a developer is, correct? You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
you have an idea.
Yes, yeah.
So development team will usually be developing the code for it and they will be creating this particular Facebook page. So the testing team is simply they
Hmm.
will test this entire page, but that is also not easy. So people will say that testing is very easy, but it is not easy. It's actually need more analytical ability to do that. You saw this simple example we saw
You need a
here.
good eye for things. Yeah.
Correct. We
You
need
need to be able
good
to
sense
spot
to that.
problems.
Yeah. So for the simple application, we need these four data. So this takes a sense. You need some analytical ability to find this data for it. So that's what a developer and a tester difference is. So now if you take this, you know about the difference between the type of testing. Now this first testing, functional testing will be done by unit testing will be done by developers. The integration also will be done by developers. So the third test is system testing that will be done by the testing team. Okay, so we testers will be doing the system testing importantly. Mainly we will do the system testing. Okay. So the fourth type of
Hmm.
testing is user acceptance testing where we will give it to the users and they will test it. Test it. Okay.
Hmm.
So this is called as. So inside user acceptance testing, there are two types. One is alpha testing, one is beta testing.
Oh yeah, I've heard of those two.
Okay. So there are two types of user acceptance testing. I will say what it is. So this is one type, and this is the second type. So alpha testing means you are developing it in, for example, I am developing it in India. Okay, for example, I am developing my application in India. So now I will invite some users to my location and I will ask them to test it. Okay, so the
Hmm.
testing will happen in my location.
So alpha
Test,
testing is the location we're currently in, whether it's mine or yours.
it's not only based on location, but I will not call a real client. I mean, I won't call a real client. I will give it to some other vendors. For example, I develop an application, I do a testing here, then I will give it to some other person to test it. So they will come to my location and they will test it, and so that I can do the fixes
Okay.
very easily. The fixes will be done very faster. So that is called as alpha testing.
Hmm.
Whereas the beta testing is we give the product to them and they will test it and they will say the review on it.
So
We
that could be
give
anywhere.
it could be anywhere, yeah, to them and they will give their feedback.
Ah, right.
So that is called as beta
I
testing.
wondered what
For
the two
example,
was. Yeah.
okay, so you can hear this word very easy, the beta testing. For
Hmm.
example, if what mobile are you holding usually? Now, which mobile are you holding?
Oh, currently I've got a Hawaii. Hawaii.
Huawei. Okay, fine. That is based on Android, correct?
Yes,
That's
I've had an iPhone
Android.
for several years, but I got fed
Okay.
up.
Okay. So now Android, the current version is I get it is Nugget, Android Nugget we have. Okay. So
Hmm.
if the Android is releasing a newer version, they will come up with a newer version every time. So once in 6 months, they will release a new version of Android OS. So what they will do is first they will design all the things, they will test it within themselves. Then they will ask some people to come to their location and test it. So that is alpha testing. They will invite some users to come and test it in their location. So that is alpha testing. Next, what they will do is they will release that product to some special 100 people they will pick. So for example, they will ask that who are all ready for beta testing my application. So what they do is they will release their product to only those 100 people. They will be in so many locations. They will do all the day-to-day activities with that mobile, and if they have any problem, they will report it to the team. So the team will fix and release it to them. So by this way, they can get the real-time client's feedback by using the beta testing.
Mhm.
You're reading the idea? So you coming
Yeah,
to my
yeah.
location and testing is different, but you are checking testing in your location. You will take a test it at any time using any different weather climate. So you'll do everything in your location. If you are free, you can do anything. You come to my location, that's different. So
Yeah,
these are two
so
type
that
of
is going to
testing.
work different in different countries and different locations.
Correct. So we will do the beta testing at any different points. So that is how the Android also do. The Android, they will, if they're releasing a new version now, they will send us a mail to almost all users. We might ignore that, but if you look at that mail, they will say that beta testing is ready for Android's new version. If you want to do that, please enroll for this in this website. So if we
Mhm.
enroll that, they will release this new version of Android only to us, only to this 100 people. We will test it and we will find defects and we will say to them that this is not working, that is not working. Then they will fix everything and they will finally release it for the every customer. So that is called as a beta testing and alpha testing. Okay, so these are the two type of testing. And now in integration testing, there is another type of called as component testing. Okay, the component testing is a type of integration testing. I will say what a component testing means. You got all these points so far, what we went through? Are you able to get all these points, grasp all these points?
Yeah, I've taken notes. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So component
So
testing is like, so now I will give another example. You have a car, for example. I'm so sorry that I'm taking the same example, but I think
no, no,
that's
no, no.
easily
Please do,
understandable.
because in that
Okay,
way, no, it's good that you are. In that way, it's not confusing me,
okay,
and we're
fine.
stuck with one kind of scenario, one, yeah,
Okay, fine.
example.
So let's take a car company, and there is a one team called as a tire manufacturer team. Tire team. Let's say there is a tire team, and their job is they will first. What is the first stage of testing? Do you remember? There are four type of
First,
testing. I told you. You
exhaustive,
can you can see this and let me know. In this four type, what will the first thing? Unit testing, correct?
functional,
In the
unit
functional,
testing.
unit testing will be done. So the unit testing will the car tire team will design the tire and they will immediately test it for all kind of things. They will test it. So
Mhm,
now what they need is they need to do it with integration testing. They need to fix it with the chassis and they will test it. So like they will need a car to actually test this particular operation.
mhm,
So that is called as integration testing. I told you that, correct? So that is called as integration. We will integrate two parts and we will test it. But now, unfortunately, this top layer is not available. This top layer is not available. So that team is has not completed the job yet. Okay, this the entire other parts is not ready. So now how to test that integration testing? Any idea on that? So the tire team did their job well, but the other teams
but,
are still doing their job. So but now they need to go for integration testing. So what this
mhm,
tire team does is they will create a sample like that. So it is not actually a car's exact part, but they will create as a mock image. So that is called as a mock of it.
mhm,
So mock is basically it's not real, but it is something like that, something near to that. So they will create something near to it and they will try to do the testing with that, whether it is working properly or not, the wheel is working properly or not. So this is called as driver or step. They will call this as a driver or step.
mhm.
Okay. You are clear?
Uh-huh.
I will give another example for you. So now let's say there are three pages. So one, two, and three pages. Three web, same application with three pages. One is the login page. The next one is the Amazon home page. The last one is orders page or the cart. So we will have it in Amazon as a Amazon cart. So now the homepage team designed this homepage completely. They completed this homepage and they tested this homepage and it's working perfectly. I mean, the user unit testing is done here. So now they want to test the integration between this homepage and this login page. But the login page team is not completed. They are still doing their job. But what the homepage team does is they will create a mock of this. So they will create something like this, something like a homepage with the minimal features. And now they will test it, whether it's working properly or not. The integration, they will test it, whether it's working properly or not. So this concept is called as component testing. So when nothing is available, they will create with some mock images and they will test it. So that is called as component testing. So, and another thing is that I told you two things, stub and driver, correct? So here the order will be like this. So usually when you're first, you need to log in, then you need to go to home page, then you need to select something, then you need to order. If the previous part is not available, then you call it as stub. Okay. If the later part is not available, now they are testing it with the cart. This home page will be tested with cart, but cart is also not available. So they will create something like this here for cart and they will mock it and they will test it. So this is called as driver. So this component is called as driver. This component is called as stub. You are able to understand what I'm saying at this level. So if the previous part is not available, but still you are testing it, then the part is called as stub. If the next part is not available and if you are testing it, it is called as driver. So that is the difference between a stub and a driver. Are you clear with this? So these are the primary type of testings that is available. So the first type of testing we saw is we can see here. So the first type of testing is we saw about unit testing, integration, system user acceptance. In user acceptance, there are two types. One is alpha, one is beta. And in integration, there is one type that is called as component testing. When nothing is available, we will go for component testing. When things are not properly designed, we will go for component testing. Okay. So non-functional testing includes the stress testing. I will explain about this in detail, but as of now, just know the name. That is sufficient. Testing, load testing. So these are the type of non-functional testing. So stress testing is how much. So load testing is like how much load can a car hold at a particular point of time. So performance testing is how within how many seconds the car is able to start. So that is comes under performance. Security testing is like within how many. So on locking the car door, it is closing properly or not. So those are the type of testing that is the non-functional testing. So this is the difference between functional and non-functional testing. You are clear with these things, these terminologies and concepts, and also we saw about the 7 principles of testing. So are you ready to move on to the next concept? Okay.
Yeah, if you just give me a minute. Can you just scroll up? I just want to
Sorry,
see the non-functional testing part.
I mean your voice is pretty low, Nisha.
Can you go back?
Okay,
Yeah.
to which screen? Okay, can you able to
To the non-functional side. I just wanted to just see under the non-functional what we had.
I mean non-functional, I will cover it later, but just for understanding, just for knowing the name, you can have these things. I will explain what
Yeah,
each thing is in detail. Okay.
that's fine. I'm just gonna quickly just take some notes. So,
Okay, fine, fine.
because if you ask me next week, I'll be like, hold on, like
Yeah, yeah,
I'll forget.
definitely. I will definitely ask you. Okay.
I'm a person. I remember things doing it, like
Okay.
practically.
Uh-huh.
But if you quiz me on the spot, I most likely just look at you, stupid.
Okay, okay, fine. It won't be hereafter, it won't be the case. Okay, don't worry.
I know, but even for my own records, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Uh, just so it's something I can refer back to.
Okay, fine. Yeah, you can definitely refer all these things. If you want, I can send you some helpful links so that you can refer some videos which you can watch and you can get information about. I will give you some pointers to it.
The thing is, before this, I had videos, but
Uh-huh,
you
okay.
can't interact with videos. So beta
Correct. That
testing
is
as well,
the one
testing
problem with
integration,
video. Yeah,
because you
exactly.
can't interact.
Correct. You can't
And
ask
like I
doubts to them.
said, exactly, yeah. So you're reading it plain and simple. You understand English, but you don't understand terminology in the IT
Correct.
world,
Yeah,
okay? So
exactly.
exactly like if you came to biomedics, okay, I don't do nothing to do with blood pressures or whatever. I simply take the blood samples from doctors or
Hmm.
whatever, and we test. Now,
Okay.
the language I will speak, you probably don't understand because you're not from that field. It's exactly the way I
Correct.
feel with
Exactly.
IT. I'm completely
Exactly. Exactly.
lost. But
Yeah.
obviously, I've had videos. I've looked in YouTube what Jira, what Waterfall, what TSF, and things like that. So it's
Okay.
like I can't ask questions to find out
Yeah,
where
exactly.
I'm
So
lost.
you can use this forum, or you can ask as many questions as possible.
This is the whole
Okay.
reason why I wanted this one-to-one. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be happy to help anytime.
Hmm.
So till this, are you okay? So I will go to the next
Yes, yeah,
concept.
I've done it now. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the next concept of testing is called as smoke testing. So, for example, you have a car. Okay, I will take again the same example. Smoke testing. You have a car. So, what is the first thing you will check in a car? Whether it is you are able to on the engine, whether the engine is switching on properly or not. So that is a primary function of a car. The secondary
Yeah.
function, whether the audio is playing properly or not, those are the secondary, but the primary function is whether
Is
the
it
car
the
is engine is on,
car is
switching on or
running?
not. So such kind of testing is called as smoke testing. You will check all the primary functions in it,
Hmm.
functions in an application. So you will do this when you don't have very minimum time. You will do this when the time is very less. We will do this. For example, if you take this Facebook application, the main function which I do is I will try to log in. If the login is successful or not, that's my first functionality. Then I will check whether I'm able to post something properly or not. I will just type something, then I will post it. So whether I can post something properly or not. So the third functionality you can see is whether I can see my profile properly or not. So the data in profile is not a big problem, but whether I can see this profile or not is very important for me. So these things are very important for me. So the primary functionality, the very important functionalities is these things, are these things. So that is called as smoke testing. So what does how does a smoke look like? So it will be here and there. So it will cover some areas, it will be visible some areas. So likewise, you will be testing it. You will cover some areas and you will leave the unnecessary areas. So only when the time is less, you will check only some important elements. So that is called as smoke testing. Okay, so this is another type of testing which we need to do sometimes. So it will be like I told you, correct? So after everything, I will go to the customer place and I will do the deployment, correct? So I told you this yesterday. So the client,
Hmm.
one of the client will, it is developed in India. So the Facebook will be taken to USA and it will be deployed there. It will be installed in the client's machine. So after installing, I will just do a quick round of smoke testing. I will open, I will see all the basic functionalities are working properly or not. Then I will close it and I will come back to my hometown. So that is called as smoke testing. And the next kind of testing is called as sanity testing. So sanity testing is like you added a new functionality to it. Let's assume I will say some example for you here. So let's say you have a calculator, okay?
Hmm.
You have a calculator. In this calculator, you added a new functionality. I will just open a calculator to you. So you added a new functionality called as addition. Addition functionality, you added it. So now you first go and do this 32 plus 22. If it is working fine, then you say that the sanity testing is correct. But and you will start doing some other complex functionality like sin theta cos theta. You know these words, right? Sin theta cos theta, the percentage, and all these things you will do later. The basic operation is addition. If that is working properly, only the other operations will work. So that kind of basic check is called as sanity testing. Okay.
So sorry, the under sanity testing basic check.
So do you have? So now you are clear about smoke and sanity. There is a small difference between them. So smoke is nothing but You will check whether the application is open, whether you are able to log in,
That's
whether
the
you are
first
able to
thing.
see my newsfeed and other things. Sanity is you
Mhm.
might have added a new functionality to it. So you will check very basic in that functionality alone. You won't check the entire application. So you won't check whether calculator is opening properly or not. So that is smoke testing. But you'll open calculator and you will start typing some small calculation. 8 plus 9 is equal to. So
Mhm.
if this
Mhm.
is returning properly, then you can say the sanity testing is passed. But even this is not returning. Instead of 17, you get 18 as a value. 48 as a value, then it is not working properly. So sanity testing is in your newly added functionality. You will check that small change. You will check the important area. Okay.
Mhm.
So that is called as sanity testing. So these are the primary type of testing. There are so many type of testing we have, but mainly these four are the main type of testing we have. We will practice day to day basis. Okay, clear on these things, these four aspects.
Yes.
Okay, so then we will cover the. Are you okay with covering one more topic? I will just have this is again a similar topic to this.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so unit testing and integration testing will is called as a white box testing, whereas these two are called as a black box testing. I will say what
Yeah.
is
Black
black box
box,
and what
white
is
box,
white
blue
box.
box.
You
Mhm.
understood that? You know what is a black box and what's a white box?
I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you.
Okay, fine. I will say what is a black box. Simple. So now I have a box here. Let's say this is a box for me, which I have. So I pass the data input from here to here. So now are you able to see what is happening between the box? A line is passing, correct?
Mhm.
So you are able to see what is inside. So inside, for example, there are so many things written. So something is written inside this. Let's assume this is a programming code. So you are able,
Mhm.
if you are able to work and you can able to see the programming code, then it is called as a white box testing. So now let's assume the black box testing. So what in white box testing, you give a input here. So you pass a input from here. You will see an output here. And you will also see how this input and output is working. You will see the functionality that is written inside this. So this is called
Mhm.
as white box testing. So basically you will see the code, what is
So white
doing.
box is what you will see inside. Okay.
We will see inside. So that is why I told this is done by developers. Whereas the black box testing, if you take, I will draw a black box here.
Mhm. See
So now
in
I
which.
fill this with a black color. Let's say, so now I pass a input here. Now I pass a input and I will pass output. Now you see, you can see some input is going on in here and you see an output here, but you don't know what is happening inside. This is a question mark for you because you don't know what
Mhm.
is the code inside. So that is called as a black box testing. You don't care about the code. You will just pass an input here and you will get an output here. So that is called as a black box testing. This is called as a white box testing.
Mhm. What's the reason for black box and white box
I will
testing?
say this. So
Okay.
now this is the
Sorry,
basic
I'm
difference.
jumping.
No, not a problem. So let's assume this application which we designed. Okay. So this is the application. So what here we are doing is we are just passing age 24 and I click on this button. If eligible, this display is working fine for me. So here I am not seeing any code here. I am just interacting with that application. I am putting in input. I am getting an output. So this is called as a black box testing. Whereas the white box testing is I type the word 60, I type the value of 55, 22, then I am able to see the entire code with which it is written. So I am this is the for example, it opens some screen for me like this. And I can see so many lines of code here. And the input is passing from here to here, and the end I am getting the value. So that is called as the white box testing. You are able to see the code here. So usually we developers don't care about the code. We don't know what the code is. All we need is whether the application is working fine or not for me. So those are the type of input and white box and black box testing. Okay, you're clear, and still, or you still have doubts on why do we need a white box testing or why do we need a black box testing?
Yeah, I'm still a bit confused on that.
Okay, fine. I will say. So now, as an end user, I told this is taken by developers. Developers and unit testing and integration testing fall under this.
Mhm.
Testing fall under this category. Whereas this is taken care by testers. System testing and user acceptance testing. User acceptance testing is also called as UAT. It's an abbreviation.
Mhm.
User acceptance testing it calls for. So now a developer is developing a small module. For example, they will give the user ID here and a password here. They will give a user ID as Amrish and the password is let's say 123456. So now they will pass both the inputs and they will see how my code is reacting. So if this is a valid input and output, then it should give a correct result for me. It should give a tick mark for me here. It should give a tick mark for me. If this is a not a right one, then it should give a into mark for me. So they will check in each and every line of code for it. If there is any error, so if there is an error here, then they will come to this line of code and they will do some modification to that code. And now they will again
Okay,
pass the
so the
same input.
developers will
The developer must see the code so that they will know where to change it. So that's why
Mhm.
they will be seeing the entire code. But what we will do, I pass an input called, I just type a value here. For example, Amrish is my user ID and 123456 is my password. So this is a valid username and password. But when I type it, I am getting, instead of this tick symbol, I'm getting an into symbol here as an output, which says that this is not a valid
Mhm.
input or not. So now what I will do is I will say that this input is valid, but I'm getting a some error message. So I will assign it back to the developer saying that there is some problem in the code. So now the developer will look into his code and he will fix that issue. Since we don't need to look into the code, we will be doing the black box testing. But the developer want to change in the code. So that's why he need to do the white box testing. You're clear?
Right.
I will just reiterate it again. So I will pass the user ID and password and I will check that there is an error message in my screen. So I will come and
Mhm.
report back to the developer saying that, hey developer, this is a problem. There is a problem in login functionality. What the developer will
Mhm.
take is he will open the login functionality. There will be a code for
And
him.
the code
So he will
and
open a
the
login functionality code and he will check, okay, I should make a change in here. So there will be some change. So I will change this dot equal something he will change. And then he
okay,
will
yeah.
fix it. So now he
And then
will
I'll be
say
able
to
to
me,
log in.
yeah, he will say to me that this is fixed. Now I will again test it and I will see it. So since I don't need to check the code, so the developer or the tester is not required to see the code. So that is why it is called as a black box testing. Whereas the developer needs to see the code. That's why it is called as a white box testing. Are you clear with these types?
Right, yes, yes.
So ultimately, the fix will happen only if they change the code. But we are not responsible for that because we're just testing it. So
It's
we
the
will push
developers.
it correct. So the developer needs to see the code. So that is called as a white box testing. So these two
The
fall under
tester
the
point
black
is just a
box.
report.
Correct. So these two fall
So the
under a
tester
black box. Yeah,
Mhm. So basically the tester is dealing with the black box side and the developers on the white box,
exactly.
correcting any
So correct.
future like codes or whatever. So the
Yeah,
testers will only have to report if something isn't working and developers fix it and testers then continue.
exactly. So our job is to find the problems. Their job is to fix it. So basically, we are
Right.
just happy people. We will be finding the defects. Finding the defects is easier one rather than to fix the issue.
Exactly.
So we are the
If
happy
I'm in
people.
testing, yeah. So if I'm testing, for example, all my life
Uh-huh.
I'm just looking for faults and errors.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm saying as a manual tester, you're literally
Uh-huh.
just looking for faults and errors.
Correct. So we will be finding the errors or the defects. So error is not the correct word. We
Defects,
will be
yeah.
finding what the
Right one.
defects. Yeah. So that is
Defects,
what
yeah.
our job is.
Right.
So the more we find the defect, the more accurate our product is, the more quality our product is. Because instead of the client finding it, we found it ourselves.
Yes,
For
yep.
example, you
Well,
design a
that's
banking
the whole purpose
application.
of our job.
Yeah, correct. So before someone finds the issue, if I find the issue, then it is a good name for me. But if the client finds that there is an issue, then he won't come to me next time. He will give the project to some other person. So that is the reason
Hmm.
why everyone will have a testing team with them. So yesterday we saw about some testing reasons. So
I
in the
understand. Yeah.
Bloomberg, the money crashed and people were suffering.
The
So to avoid that,
tester,
we are
yeah,
testing it.
all the.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the main thing. So these are the primary type of testing. We saw about the 7 principles of testing and also about some classifications, black box, white box, and other stuff. So if you want to continue, we can, or we can hold it for the day. So because the next topic which I'm taking is totally different from what it is now, what we are doing it here.
Oh no, then what we'll do, we'll continue it next week.
Okay, fine. Because the next week we will see about testing
Because if
models. So I think we
yeah,
can break it here and we can go it for the next week, so that it will be a continuous
yeah,
session
because there's
next
no
week.
point starting something. Yeah, yeah, there's no point starting something and then
Okay.
leaving it hanging. Um, Amish, just one thing I wanted to ask you before we hang up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
you know, completely say towards the end of this session, like right at the end in a few weeks, will we
Okay.
be doing like live demonstrations and stuff like that, like a proper project?
Yeah, I will. It can be done. So, what kind of project you are expecting? I mean, I can give you some assignments in between too. So, I mean, by next week we can have some assignments. If
By
you
next,
want to do
yeah,
some project kind of thing, we can also do something like that. It's not a problem. We can have it for one
yeah,
session and
like
we can
towards
do it.
the end, yeah, after like few weeks, obviously.
Yeah,
Now I
definitely
want
we
to
can.
learn the ins and outs. Yeah, right now obviously
Sure,
I'm
sure.
learning theory side, but like how I'm gonna go to a job and conduct everything. Knowing is something, but doing is completely different, right?
Correct, exactly. So as of now, I'm taking only theoretical session, but
Hmm.
in next session or the very next session, something will be you will do
Yeah,
some
yeah.
work with it. So we will definitely have a hands or I mean some project kind of thing, so that
Yeah,
you will have
that's
some.
exactly what I was worried about. This is the whole reason why I want to uh,
Okay, fine.
do it. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
after
sure.
a few sessions, not straight away, but I'm just curious to know.
Okay, yeah, we will definitely do it, Nisha. I mean, in 2 or 3 weeks we will start it, so that now
That's
we
fine.
will cover the theoretical part, so that at that point of time it will be easier, comfortable for you. So that's why I'm thinking. Okay.
Because not until I'm comfortable, I'm not leaving anywhere.
No, no problem, no problem. You will feel comfortable very sooner. So
Yeah.
I think now you know the basics of testing. So you just go through these
Yeah,
points.
yeah, yeah. I do have
Okay,
an
next week.
understanding. Like I said, it's only a theory side right now, so yeah. Um,
Okay,
Amish,
that's
just wanted to talk
yeah,
regarding time next Saturday. Shall we Friday? We can discuss time for Saturday,
yeah,
Sunday.
definitely. Yeah, we will
Yeah,
chat over the WhatsApp and we will fix the timings.
yeah, definitely Friday. So yeah, you have a rough idea anyway. Saturdays I'm quite flexible, and Sundays would be
Uh,
earlier, the better.
yeah, anything is okay for me, Nisha. I will be. I mean, I will just let you know if there is a change in my schedule, so that on Friday we will reschedule our
Please
program
do,
accordingly.
please, please. You're causing me no trouble by any means. Like, just let me
Okay.
know because I understand you're working as well. So please tell me
Yeah.
as well if something's inconvenient. I'm quite flexible at the moment, so
Okay, fine.
just
Yeah.
few days in the week I'm busy. Sometime if weekend isn't good for you, tell me on the weekend as weekday as well.
Sure.
I can
Yeah, sure,
sort
Nisha.
something.
Okay, fine. As of now,
So
we will park it to the weekend. So next week, I will let you know the schedule on Friday. So we will meet up on Saturday at the scheduled time. Okay.
that's fine. That's perfect. All right. Thank you for your time and speak to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Nisha. Thank you. Have a great week ahead.
You too, Amrish. Bye now.
Bye bye.